Ladies and gentlemen, last December, I began a journey to give working families a voice in Washington, D.C. You joined me on this journey because you believed in me. You trusted me. You took a leap of faith. And tonight, you, the people of South Carolina, and the voters of District 2 have honored your own faith and mine. And so I thank you from the bottom of my heart. We sought and we reached high ground tonight in our trek toward the summit of this mountain we call democracy. And tonight, high atop our first peak, our reward is an amazing view, a glimmer of justice. You see it too, my fellow climbers, not just because you have scaled this mountain with me, but because justice resides in your hearts, as it does in mine. And though still far away, this view, this glimmer of justice, it comforts us. And it gives us hope in the promise of a new tomorrow. And so with these streams of living waters before us, we climb and we vote. Tonight, many of you voted for a woman to represent you in the U.S. House of Representatives, a seat once occupied by men like John Quincy Adams and Alexander Hamilton, but also Joseph Rainey, Jeanette Rankin, Shirley Chisholm, Geraldine Ferraro, and Elizabeth Gask. Only 5 women have ever been sent to Congress by the voters of South Carolina. But on November 6th, with your help, I will join them and send Joe Wilson home.
Yeah.
Yes. I have scaled many mountains before this one, and I will no doubt scale many more. But I am a woman who has learned to speak the truth even when her voice shakes, and even if it makes some angry. Like you, I am tired of the lies. I am tired of the greed, the racism, the misogyny, and tired of the self-serving people who so often run for office and win. And so together, we climb. This mountain called democracy has made us weary. It is much steeper than we imagined, and its mighty peaks, which should be filled with the heroes of justice, instead lays barren and bleak before us. Like snow in summer and rain in harvest, this mountain discourages us and causes us to ask at times why we bother. Its storms have chilled us to the bone at times and broken our faith in those whom we once trusted. Evil comes in many forms, and all too often it comes from those who crown themselves the heroes. But justice is bigger than evil, and heroes are not those who praise themselves, but those who fight without thought of glory, gain, or power. And so as we climb this mountain, we must keep tonight's view of justice before us, even as we guard our hearts from the creeping threat of self, lest we become the very thing that we despise. No election, no representative, and no candidate is perfect. I certainly am not. But public service as elected officials means giving every person both a vote and a voice, regardless of their status, skin, or sex. This is basic humanity, not politics. As representatives, we must fight for every citizen, regardless of their vote, and fight for those who cannot fight. And we must become deaf and blind to the powers who would pay us for those precious votes. But this is not the America we live in now. Our America is one where meals on wheels are discarded for trips to Mar-a-Lago, where people who cannot count are told that they have more money, where former congressmen brag that they hold meetings only if they are paid, and where those with health problems, so-called pre-existing conditions, are left to die without a care. And so as we climb this mountain, we must recognize that we are fighting for the very soul of our nation. The election of Donald Trump has caused an existential crisis, and Joe Wilson adds to this crisis every day. while Trump shreds the rule of law and dismantles our democracy in an unceasing quest for unending power and unlimited money, Joe does not merely stay silent. Like our governor, he praises Trump and offers him unending loyalty. Not to us, the people he represents and was elected to serve, but to Donald Trump, a man who serves no one and nothing but power and money. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, said Lord Acton. And Republicans like Joe Wilson have breached their oaths of office by giving this president absolute power without so much as a glance at the checks and balances required by our Constitution. Our congressmen have committed the cardinal sin of staying silent as a foreign government interfered with our election, our most sacred democratic institution. In so doing, they have become Trump's accomplices in the dismantling of our democracy. Joe Wilson has breached his oath to the people of America, however, not once but many times, and he did it long before Donald Trump. Years ago, Joe turned his gaze from the mountain of democracy and cast his lot with the doers of evil. The prophet Isaiah spoke of men like Trump and Joe when he said, "They plan and plot evil, think and breathe evil, and leave a train of wrecked lives behind them. They know nothing about peace and less than nothing about justice." Like so many other Republicans in Congress, Joe has left a trail of wrecked lives in South Carolina. And by supporting Trump unchecked, Joe has shown us that he knows less than nothing about justice. And this is why Joe must go, and why we climb. Shirley Chisholm said, "Our representative democracy is not working because the Congress that is supposed to represent the voters does not respond to their needs. The chief reason for this," she said, "is that it is ruled by a small group of old men." Sadly, little has changed in the 40 years since Madam Congresswoman said this. We are still being ruled by a small group of old men. And South Carolina hasn't sent a woman to Congress since 1997. But the voters have spoken tonight, and they have said across our state that it is time. I understand that for many, my voice is a bit too loud. I stand a bit too tall, and I speak before I am spoken to. I do not stay in my place, and that makes some uncomfortable. But like you, I love people more than money. And because I love people, I fight for justice. And because I fight for justice, I climb mountains. It is, one might say, my calling, because though wholly unaware of the tools and training I was receiving, I now know that I have been preparing for this climb for 20 years. I'm ready. Perhaps you are too. To scale this mountain of democracy, we must prepare. We must weep with those who weep and mourn with those who mourn. We must sacrifice and strive and never yield. We must find the strength, the dignity, and the passion within to sustain us. We must do this, I believe, by remembering the view we have before us tonight, this glimmer of justice. We climb, however, not because we are climbers, but because we are believers. We believe in a world where people are good, where love wins, and where justice prevails. An America where streams of living waters are so wide and so deep that everyone can partake. I did not always understand it this way, but I do now, and so I climb. For if we climb, we will conquer this mountain of democracy, ladies and gentlemen. And once and for all, finally, we will partake of the justice which has eluded so many for so long. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "We must look fear in the face. We must do the thing we think we cannot do." For 8 months, my team and I have looked fear in the face. And now you have done the thing you think you could not do. You have voted for a woman, most of you, to represent the 2nd Congressional District of South Carolina in the November election. Tonight, we rest atop the first peak of this mountain called democracy. We rest, we refresh, and we celebrate the view before us. For tomorrow, we climb. Thank you.